The crystalline war room beneath Mount Rushmore pulsed with holographic displays, each one tracking the movements of the Galactic Council's invasion fleet. General Emma Thompson stood motionless at the center of the chamber, her weathered face illuminated by the red warning indicators that filled the space around her. 10,000 alien warships had just emerged from hyperspace, their energy signatures burning like stars against Earth's orbital plane. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. The assembled staff officers exchanged glances before Colonel Marcus Rivera stepped forward with his datapad. "The Council's main fleet has taken position in high orbit, General. Their formation matches standard siege protocols. We're looking at complete planetary containment within the hour. Secondary forces are already neutralizing our remaining orbital defenses." He paused, swallowing hard. "The lunar bases have gone dark." Thompson nodded, seemingly unfazed by humanity's impending doom. "And their commander?" A junior officer activated a new hologram, revealing a massive flagship that dwarfed its escorts. "High Marshal Kexexe himself, ma'am. The Council sent their supreme military commander to accept our surrender." A ghost of a smile crossed Thompson's face. "Of course they did. Their psychology wouldn't allow anything less. The great Kexexe, here to personally witness humanity's submission." She turned to face her staff. "How many of you have studied old Earth history, specifically the hunting techniques of our ancestors?" The question caught them off guard, but Major Sarah Collins raised her hand. "Persistence hunting, ma'am. Before we had tools, humans would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We couldn't outrun them, but we could outlast them." "Precisely, Major." Thompson expanded a tactical display with a gesture. "Our bodies evolved for persistence. Our minds developed to track, to predict, to understand our prey's behaviors and limitations. We became apex predators not through superior strength or speed, but through patience and understanding." She touched another control, and the holographic room transformed into a representation of the galaxy, showing the past century of warfare. Red markers indicated lost human colonies, blue ones marked Council victories. For 100 years, they've been hunting us, pushing us back, defeating us. Her voice took on an edge. "And for 100 years, we've been studying them, learning their patterns, understanding their psychological limitations. Every defeat was a lesson. Every retreat revealed more about their capabilities. We didn't just lose those battles, we fed them their victories like breadcrumbs, leading them exactly where we needed them to be." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Thompson continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "The Council species are used to quick victories. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force and rapid capitulation. They've never fought an enemy that understood defeat could be a weapon." She straightened her uniform and faced her officers. "Initiate Operation Endurance. Broadcast on all frequencies. Earth stands ready to discuss terms of surrender." Shocked murmurs filled the room. Colonel Rivera stepped forward. "General, with all due respect, their psychological profile demands they accept surrender in person." Thompson cut him off. "High Marshal Kexexe will insist on coming to Earth to formalize our submission. His cultural imperatives require him to stand on the soil of the worlds he conquers." Her smile returned, fiercer now. "And that's exactly what we've spent a century planning for." She activated her neural link, connecting to humanity's hidden command network. Throughout the solar system, dormant systems began warming up, preparations made decades in advance finally spinning into action. "Send word to all cells. Operation Trojan Horse is now in effect." Thompson's eyes gleamed in the holographic light. "Let's show them why you never trap a creature that evolved to chase its prey to exhaustion." The message pulsed outward through quantum-encrypted channels, reaching hidden bunkers and secret facilities scattered across Earth and the solar system. In that moment, as the Council fleet moved to accept humanity's surrender, they failed to ask themselves a crucial question. Why would a species that had fought so hard for so long suddenly give up just when their enemy's entire leadership was gathered in one place? They were about to learn that humanity's greatest deception wasn't in their apparent defeats. It was in making the Council believe they were the hunters rather than the prey. Dr. James Carter stood in the darkness of Mining Station Olympus, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The abandoned facility hung in space like a dead satellite, appearing to be nothing more than another casualty of the long war. The Council's sensors had swept past it a dozen times in the last week alone, dismissing it as just another piece of human wreckage. That was exactly the point. Station power reserves at 15%. The facility's AI reported, its voice barely above a whisper despite the fact that no one could possibly hear them in the vacuum of space. Old habits died hard, even for artificial intelligences. "Execute Protocol Phoenix," Carter commanded, pressing his palm against a frozen biometric scanner. Throughout the station, systems that had laid dormant for decades began to awaken. Hidden reactors powered up, their energy signatures masked by revolutionary quantum dampening fields. Walls shifted, revealing manufacturing bays that had been disguised as solid rock. Transmitting activation codes to all networked facilities, the AI confirmed. Time to full manufacturing capability. 30 minutes. Carter pulled up a holographic display showing the status of humanity's greatest secret. Scattered throughout supposedly abandoned star systems, thousands of automated factories were spinning to life. Each one had been carefully positioned in camouflage, often in the debris fields of destroyed human colonies. The Council's forces had never realized that each decisive victory had only served to spread humanity's hidden industrial base further across the galaxy. "Status report on Production Series 7. He ordered, watching as streams of data filled the air around him. "Advanced drone fighters beginning assembly. Estimated completion of first wave, 2 hours. Quantum communication arrays operating at full capacity. No detection by Council monitoring systems." Carter allowed himself a small smile. The Council's engineers had always wondered how humans managed to keep fighting despite losing so many industrial centers. They never considered that humanity had developed a completely different approach to manufacturing, one based on small, distributed facilities rather than massive, centralized factories. "Sir," the AI interrupted his thoughts, "we're receiving the signal from Earth. Operation Trojan Horse is in effect." "Right on schedule," Carter murmured. He activated his quantum-encrypted link to the other facility's command staff. "This is Control. Begin Phase 2 production. Implementation of all collected Council tech modifications is now authorized." For decades, every encounter with Council forces had been a learning opportunity. Their superior technology had been studied, reverse-engineered, and in many cases, improved upon by human engineers who weren't constrained by the Council's rigid technological doctrines. Now those improvements would be put to use. The manufacturing bays hummed as they began producing weapons that combined human ingenuity with Council technology. Drone fighters with neural networks modeled on wolf-pack hunting behaviors. Stealth systems that didn't just hide ships but made them appear to be something else entirely. Quantum communications arrays that could piggyback signals on the Council's own network. "Sir," the AI reported, "we're detecting increased Council fleet activity near Saturn. They appear to be conducting standard victory protocols." Carter checked the tactical display. The Council's forces were positioning themselves for their traditional victory celebration, a massive display of force meant to impress their newly conquered subjects. Their ships would be focused on the ceremonial formations, their sensors calibrated for maximum visual impact rather than tactical awareness. "Perfect," he said. "They're following the exact psychological pattern we predicted. Implement command protocol." Shadow Wolf. Throughout the abandoned star systems, production facilities began launching their first wave of completed weapons. The autonomous units moved like ghosts through space, their stealth systems making them virtually undetectable. They took up position in the blind spots of Council ships, hiding in plain sight among the debris of humanity's supposed defeat. "All units report ready," the AI announced, awaiting final authorization from Earth Command. Carter watched the Council fleet continuing their victory preparations, completely unaware that they were surrounding themselves with humanity's hidden weapons. Send confirmation to General Thompson. The hunter's trap is set. In the space around thousands of supposedly dead human worlds, humanity's real industrial might stood ready. The Council had spent a century destroying obsolete factories and outdated shipyards, never realizing they were helping to conceal humanity's true manufacturing capability. Now, as they prepared to accept Earth's surrender, that hidden industry was about to show them the true meaning of human ingenuity. Admiral Jessica Stone watched from the bridge of the U.S. Phantom as the Council's mighty communication network began to fail. Her stealth command ship hung invisible in the debris field of what had once been a human colony, its quantum camouflage making it indistinguishable from the surrounding wreckage. "Ma'am, the first wave of system failures has begun," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. "Council communication nodes are going dark exactly as predicted." Stone nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display, showing the cascade of failures spreading through enemy territory. "Show me the pattern analysis." The holographic display shifted, revealing the Council's vast communication network. Red dots began appearing, each one representing a failed node. To most observers, the failures would appear random, the natural result of battle damage and system strain. But Stone saw the true pattern emerging, a perfect execution of chaos theory applied to strategic warfare. "Our quantum AIs have fully penetrated their primary networks," Rodriguez continued. "They're implementing the developed attack patterns based on the last century of collected data." The Council's cybersecurity never adapted because they never realized they were being tested. Stone allowed herself a small smile. For decades, human quantum computers have been launching subtle probes into Council networks, testing their defenses, learning their protocols. Each probe was designed to appear as normal system noise or routine errors. The Council's engineers had actually praised their system's reliability, never realizing that what they interpreted as a 99% success rate was exactly the level of vulnerability humanity needed. "Signal from Earth Command," the communications officer announced. "General Thompson reports Operation Trojan Horse Phase 2 is complete. We are authorized to proceed with Phase 3. "Very well." Stone straightened in her command chair. "Deploy the Shadow." Throughout the debris field, hundreds of stealth satellites activated. Each one had been positioned years ago, disguised as fragments of destroyed human vessels. Now they formed an invisible web of quantum communication relays, creating a secondary network that would allow human forces to coordinate while the Council's communication grid collapsed. "Council forces are beginning to respond to the communications failures," Rodriguez reported. "Their ships are shifting to backup frequencies." "Just as expected," Stone said. "They're following their standard contingency protocols. Launch our first strike package." From hidden positions throughout the sector, automated strike craft emerged from their camouflage waiting spots. Their designs were unlike anything the Council had seen before, hybrid vessels that combined reversed-engineered alien technology with humanity's own innovations. They moved like predators, their targeting systems guided by neural networks that had evolved through millions of simulated battles. "Strike package away. Weapons control confirmed." "Council forces are not detecting our approach. Their sensors are still calibrated for their own technology signatures." Stone watched as the first wave of human ships struck their targets. Council command and control centers, already struggling with communication failures, now found themselves under attack by an enemy they couldn't detect. The mighty alien fleet began to fragment as ships lost contact with their commanders. Signal detected from High Marshal Kexixi's flagship. Communications reported. They're ordering all forces to converge on Earth. They think this is a last-ditch resistance effort. Perfect. Stone activated the fleet-wide command channel. "All units, execute attack pattern Omega. Remember your training. We're not fighting their ships, we're fighting their command structure. Target their ability to coordinate, not their ability to fight." The human strike forces moved with practiced precision, hitting communication arrays, sensor nodes, and command ships. Each target had been carefully selected to create maximum confusion in the Council's rigid military hierarchy. Without clear orders from above, their ships began to break formation, individual commanders falling back on conflicting protocols. Council fleet cohesion is dropping, Rodriguez reported with barely contained excitement. Their formation is breaking apart. Stone nodded, watching as the mighty alien armada began to dissolve into chaos. Send word to Dr. Carter. Tell him to launch Phase 4. It's time to show the Council that losing their communication network was just the beginning. The Council had spent centuries building the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, but they had never faced an enemy who understood that armies without coordination were just collections of very expensive targets. As their mighty ships floundered in the darkness, they were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their hidden fleet. It was their understanding of how to turn a vast military machine against itself. Colonel Michael Hayes crouched in the shadow of a derelict Council cruiser, watching through his neural interface as another wave of autonomous drones swept past the alien fleet's defensive line. From his stealth observation post, he could see the Council commanders' growing frustration as they tried to track targets that seemed to defy their tactical doctrine. Status report on Operation Nightmare, he vocalized, the quantum comm implant picking up the words before they reached his throat. Psychological impact exceeding projections. The mission A responded directly into his auditory cortex. Council ship commanders showing increasing signs of stress. Their formation cohesion has dropped 60% in the last hour. Hayes smiled grimly. The Council's military had spent 50,000 years perfecting their doctrine of overwhelming force. Their ships were designed for grand fleet actions, their crews trained to fight in rigid formations. They had no framework for dealing with an enemy that refused to match their expectations. Launch the next wave, he ordered. Pattern Delta 7. The drone swarms shifted tactics instantly, their behavioral algorithms adapting based on real-time analysis of enemy responses. Some units appeared to violate the laws of physics, using quantum displacement drives to seem like they were in multiple places simultaneously. Others mimicked the hunting patterns of Earth's apex predators, moving with the calculated randomness of wolves stalking prey. Sir, his second-in-command, Major Lisa Chen, reported over the secure link. The Council flagship is requesting reinforcements from their third fleet. They're claiming some kind of new human superweapon. They still don't get it, Hayes muttered. Show me their fleet commander's neural readings. A holographic display materialized in his field of vision, showing the biological data being collected by infiltration nanites in the Council ship's life support systems. The alien commander's stress indicators were spiking into dangerous territory. They're looking for a weapon they can understand, he explained to Chen. Something they can target and destroy. They can't process that our superweapon is their own psychology. The Council's military excellence was built on certainty. Their officers were promoted based on their ability to execute proven strategies. Innovation was discouraged. Deviation from doctrine was punished. They had created the perfect military machine and the perfect target for psychological warfare. Launch the Phantoms, Hayes commanded. Throughout the battlefield, holographic projectors activated, creating false sensor readings that mimicked Council ships turning against each other. The alien fleet's targeting systems, already confused by the drone swarms, began registering friendly fire incidents that hadn't actually occurred. Council communication channels are filling with accusations, Chen reported, barely containing her satisfaction. 3 destroyer groups have broken formation to protect themselves from non-existent friendly fire. Hayes watched as the mighty alien fleet began to tear itself apart from within. Ships that had fought together for centuries now saw each other as potential threats. The unbeatable armada was succumbing to humanity's oldest weapon, fear of the unknown. Signal from command, Chen announced. General Thompson reports Phase 4 is complete. We're authorized to begin Phase 5. Perfect timing. Hayes activated his command frequency. All units, execute Protocol Ragnarok. Show them what real chaos looks like. The drone swarms suddenly shifted from harassment tactics to full engagement, but instead of attacking the council ships directly, they began targeting the aliens' psychological weak points. Weapons that caused no actual damage but created terrifying sensory effects. Quantum field generators that made solid metal appear to turn liquid. Holographic projections that made space itself seem to bend and twist. Council morale is approaching critical levels, the AI reported. Their command structure is showing signs of complete breakdown. Hayes nodded, watching as the once proud alien fleet dissolved into panic. In their 50,000 years of dominance, they had never faced an enemy who understood that the greatest weakness of a perfect military machine was its own perfection. "Send word to Admiral Stone," he ordered. "The Council's fleet psychology is compromised. They're ready for the killing blow." As he watched the alien ships firing at shadows and phantoms, Hayes reflected on the irony. The Council had spent a century hunting humans across the galaxy, never realizing they were dealing with descendants of pursuit predators who had turned psychological warfare into an art form. Now, as their mighty fleet crumbled under the weight of its own fears, they were about to learn why humanity's greatest victories had always come from understanding their enemies better than the enemies understood themselves. Director Ashley Martinez stood before the Council delegation in the Geneva Underground Complex, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the aliens' mounting agitation. The holographic displays surrounding them showed their once mighty fleet scattered across the solar system, fighting shadows and phantoms, while human forces systematically dismantled their command structure. "This is impossible," High Marshal Keksexi sputtered, his crystalline carapace flashing angry patterns of red and orange. "Your forces were defeated. Your colonies destroyed. We spent a century crushing your resistance." "Did you?" Martines asked softly. She gestured, and the room's displays shifted to show a detailed strategic analysis of the 100-Year War. "Or did you spend a century following a carefully laid trail of breadcrumbs that led you exactly where we needed you to be?" The alien delegates watched in growing horror as the display highlighted each major battle of the war, showing how every human defeat had served a larger purpose. Each lost colony had scattered hidden factories across the stars. Each tactical retreat had revealed more about Council technology and psychology. Each apparent victory had drawn their forces deeper into humanity's web. "Your psychological profiles told us everything we needed to know," Martinez continued. "Your species cannot accept anything less than total submission. Your military doctrine requires personal surrender ceremonies on conquered worlds. Your entire civilization is built on the appearance of absolute dominance." She touched another control, and the display showed the current state of the Council's empire. Their communication networks were in chaos, their fleet formations shattered, their command structure collapsing. "So we gave you exactly what you expected, a seemingly primitive species fighting a conventional war of attrition. We let you believe your victories were inevitable, that each battle brought you closer to total domination. All the while, we were preparing for this moment." Commander Zixtal, the Council's chief strategist, leaned forward. "But your losses, the casualties. No species would sacrifice so much for a deception." Martinez's expression hardened. "You still don't understand what you're dealing with. Humans are descendants of persistence hunters. Our ancestors would chase prey for days, learning its patterns, understanding its limitations, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We didn't just survive your attacks. We used them to study you." The holographic display shifted again, showing the hidden network of factories and bases that had been built throughout supposedly conquered territory. Council delegates murmured in disbelief as they realized the true scale of humanity's preparation. "Every retreat taught us more about your tactics," Martinez explained. "Every captured human ship gave you outdated technology to study while we reverse-engineered your actual advances. Every destroyed colony masked the construction of automated production facilities. We weren't running from you. We were surrounding you." High Marshal Keksixi's color patterns shifted to deep blue, a sign of growing dread. "The surrender offer, Earth was never our final victory. Earth was the bait, Martinez confirmed. We knew your psychological need to personally accept surrender would bring your entire command structure here. Just as we knew your fleet formations would leave you vulnerable to our drone swarms. Just as we knew your rigid command protocols would paralyze you once we disrupted your communications. She stepped closer to the alien leaders, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. You spent a century believing you were the hunters, never realizing you were the prey. Every move you made was predicted. Every victory you celebrated was planned. Every weakness you thought you found was carefully crafted. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The council delegates watched their empire crumbling on the strategic displays, finally understanding that their greatest triumph had been their greatest trap. So now, Martinez concluded, you have a choice. You can continue fighting a war you've already lost, watching your empire tear itself apart as we trigger the rest of our prepared contingencies. Or you can accept that the galaxy's balance of power has shifted and work with us to build something new. The council leaders stared at her, then at the displays showing their disintegrating forces, then back at her. In their eyes, Martinez saw the dawning realization that they had spent a century not just fighting humans, but becoming exactly what humans had engineered them to be, architects of their own defeat. Commander Ryan Anderson watched the revolution unfold from his stealth observation post on Proxima Station. The holographic displays surrounding him showed real-time updates as client species across the galaxy shed their chains, turning against their former council masters with a coordination that appeared spontaneous to everyone except those who knew humanity's true plan. Status update on the Morphic Uprising, he commanded, his eyes fixed on the spreading wave of rebellion. 7 major species have declared independence in the last hour, Lieutenant Sarah Walker reported from her station. The Centaurians have seized control of their sector shipyards. The Vega Collective is deploying their hidden fleet. The Proxima Defense Force has switched allegiance to the human-led coalition. Anderson nodded, watching as centuries of council dominance crumbled like a house of cards. Show me the Centaurian shipyards. The display shifted, revealing massive space stations where the crystalline-bodied Centaurians were already reformatting council warships with their own technology. Humanity had spent decades secretly supplying them with advanced engineering knowledge, preparing them for this moment. Sir, Walker interrupted, encrypted transmission from the Vega Collective leadership. A holographic figure materialized. Supreme Commander Exile of the Vega Collective, their chitinous exoskeleton gleaming with bioluminescent patterns of triumph. The Council's control systems have been purged from our neural networks. Our fleet stands ready to join the Liberation Force. Excellent work, Supreme Commander, Anderson replied. Deploy according to the predetermined strategy. Remember, coordination is our advantage. The display updated, showing Vega warships emerging from hidden docks throughout their sector. For decades, the Council had dismissed the vegans as mere engineers, never suspecting they were secretly building a fleet that combined Council technology with their own unique innovations. Message from Earth Command, Walker announced. Director Martinez has completed her confrontation with the Council delegation. They're requesting terms of surrender. Anderson allowed himself a grim smile. Right on schedule. The Council's greatest weakness was always their inability to imagine defeat. Execute Phase 7 of Operation Avalanche. Throughout Council space, sleeper agents activated hidden quantum transmitters, broadcasting the truth about humanity's strategy to every subjugated species. The message was clear. The invincible empire had been outmaneuvered by the very primitives they had dismissed as inferior. Rebellion spreading to secondary sectors, Walker reported, her voice tight with excitement. The Proxima Defense Force has secured their quantum gate network. The Centaurians are deploying their gravitic disruptors. The Vega Collective is, sir, you need to see this. The main display showed Vega warships using previously hidden technology to disable Council vessels without destroying them. Their crews, many secretly sympathetic to the rebellion, were surrendering without a fight. Council response capability down to 30%, the tactical AI reported. Their remaining loyal forces are scattered and isolated. Command structure is showing complete collapse in multiple sectors. Anderson opened a channel to General Thompson on Earth. The client species uprising is proceeding exactly as planned. The Council's empire is eating itself alive. Well done, Commander, Thompson replied. The Council delegation has just witnessed their latest fleet status report. I believe the term shock and awe applies to their reaction. They never understood, did they? Anderson mused. They spent so long believing their own propaganda about human primitives that they never questioned why we kept fighting even after losing our colonies. Because every defeat spread our influence further, Thompson agreed. Every conquered world became a potential ally. Every subjugated species learned that resistance was possible. Anderson watched as another sector declared independence, the Council's grip on their civilization unraveling with remarkable speed. Incoming transmission from the Centaurian High Command. They're requesting guidance on implementing the new defense protocols. Send them the full package, Thompson ordered. It's time for everyone to understand that the future belongs to those who can adapt and cooperate, not those who demand blind obedience. As reports of successful uprisings continued to flood in, Anderson reflected on the beautiful irony of it all. The Council had spent centuries building an empire based on fear and dominance, never realizing they were creating the perfect conditions for their own downfall. Now, as their former subjects turned against them with devastating coordination, they were learning that true power came not from forcing compliance, but from inspiring allies to stand together against tyranny. Lieutenant Hannah Mitchell stood in the Xenopsychology Center beneath the Mariana Trench, surrounded by holographic displays showing the real-time psychological states of every major Council species. A century of careful study, detailed observation, and patient analysis had culminated in this moment. Display cultural pressure analysis for the dominant 7, she commanded. The AI responded instantly, projecting detailed breakdowns of the Council's leading species' societal structures. Fascinating. Dr. James Reynolds, her chief analyst, murmured as he studied the data. Their entire civilization was built on carefully maintained psychological pillars. Absolute authority, unquestionable supremacy, the appearance of invincibility. And now those pillars are crumbling, Mitchell added, watching the cascade of social collapse spreading through Council space. Show me the Kexexi species response patterns. The display shifted to show the crystalline being's rapid deterioration in the face of defeat. Their society had no framework for processing failure, no cultural context for understanding subordination. They were literally experiencing collective psychological shutdown. Message from the diplomatic corps, her communications officer announced. The Council's secondary leadership structure is requesting emergency consultation. They're experiencing mass existential crisis. Mitchell nodded. Right on schedule. Their entire species evolved in an environment of dominant predators. They survived by becoming the ultimate apex civilization. The concept of being outmaneuvered is literally foreign to their neural architecture. She gestured, bringing up the psychological profiles humanity had spent decades compiling. Every Council species' fears, hopes, cultural blind spots, and societal pressure points had been mapped with meticulous precision. What they had dismissed as primitive human stubbornness had been a century-long study in xenopsychology. Deploy the stabilization protocols, she ordered. Begin broadcasting the prepared cultural support packages to their civilian populations. We don't want their civilization to completely collapse. Throughout Council space, human psychological warfare systems shifted from attack to support mode. The same networks that had been used to spread fear and confusion now began transmitting carefully crafted messages of stability and adaptation. Psychological response patterns are stabilizing in the outer sectors, Reynolds reported. The secondary species are showing remarkable resilience. Their cultural suppression actually prepared them for change. Because they never fully internalized the Council's doctrine of absolute dominance, Mitchell explained. They maintained their ability to adapt. Show me the emerging social structures. The displays revealed new patterns forming in the wake of the Council's collapse. Species that had been forced into rigid hierarchies were naturally reorganizing into more cooperative structures. The very oppression meant to keep them weak had made them stronger. Lieutenant, her communications officer interrupted. We're receiving requests for psychological support from 17 former Council worlds. Their populations are. They're asking for human guidance in rebuilding their societies. Mitchell allowed herself a small smile. Send them the preliminary cultural reconstruction packages. Remember, we're not here to dominate them. We're here to help them understand themselves. She turned to address her team. The best synopsychologists humanity had produced. This was never about destroying the Council. It was about understanding them so completely that their own psychology became the key to creating a better galaxy. The displays showed the spreading wave of social transformation. Council species that had been locked in artificial hierarchies for millennia were rediscovering their capacity for change. The rigid structures of their civilization were being replaced by something new and more dynamic. Message from Director Martinez, the communications officer announced. The Council delegation has reviewed our psychological analysis of their civilization. They're requesting our help in understanding how to adapt. Of course they are, Mitchell said softly, because we're offering them something their own civilization never could. The chance to understand themselves. She watched as the data streams showed the first signs of genuine psychological evolution among the Council species. Their rigid thought patterns were beginning to shift, their absolute certainties giving way to new possibilities. Humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology or our military might, she told her team. It was our ability to understand our enemies better than they understood themselves. And now that same understanding will help us build a galaxy where no species needs to dominate to survive. The displays showed the continuing transformation of Council space as former masters and servants alike began the long process of learning to exist as equals. In the end, humanity's greatest victory hadn't come from destroying their enemies, but from understanding them so completely that destruction became unnecessary. Captain David Wilson stood at the observation dome of the newly constructed Galactic Assembly Station, watching representatives from 100 species converge for the first meeting of the Interstellar Cooperative. The massive structure, built in neutral space using combined technology from all major species, symbolized everything humanity had fought to achieve. Quite a view, isn't it? General Thompson asked, joining him at the window. She had traded her military uniform for diplomatic attire, though her bearing still carried the weight of command. Hard to believe this was our goal all along, Wilson replied, watching as a Centaurian ship docked alongside a former Council cruiser. Everyone thought we were fighting for survival, but we were actually fighting for this moment. The station's quantum displays showed delegations arriving from across the galaxy. Former Council species now sat alongside their one-time subjects, all equal voices in the new order. The rigid hierarchies of the past had given way to something unprecedented. True cooperation between diverse civilizations. Status report from the cultural integration teams, his AI assistant reported. The Vega Collective has successfully implemented the new joint research protocols. The Proxima Defense Force is sharing their gravitic technology. Even the former Council species are actively participating in knowledge exchange programs. Thompson nodded approvingly. They're finally learning what we knew all along, that true strength comes from understanding and adapting, not from dominating. The main assembly chamber was a marvel of architecture, designed to accommodate every species' environmental and psychological needs. Former enemies now shared space as equals, their differences becoming advantages rather than barriers. Message from Lieutenant Mitchell's team, the AI announced. The last of the psychological support protocols have been successfully implemented. All major species are showing stable adaptation to the new paradigm. Wilson watched as a group of former Council leaders engaged in animated discussion with representatives from species they had once subjugated. They're actually learning from each other now. No more pretense of superiority, No more rigid hierarchies. Because we showed them a better way, Thompson said. Not through force, but through understanding. Every species brings something unique to the table. The Council's mistake was trying to suppress that diversity rather than embrace it. The displays showed similar scenes playing out across the galaxy. Former Council shipyards now buzzed with mixed species engineering teams, combining technologies in ways never before imagined. Research centers that had once served military dominance now focused on solving shared challenges. Incoming transmission from the Centaurian High Command, the AI reported. Their deep space expeditions have reported increased quantum anomalies in the galactic core. They're requesting a joint scientific mission. Approve it, Wilson ordered. Assign mixed teams from all interested species. This is exactly what we've been working toward, facing the unknown together rather than trying to hoard knowledge. The assembly chamber's indicators shifted to green, signaling the start of the historic first session. Representatives from every major civilization took their places in the circular chamber, their seating arranged not by rank or power, but by their ability to contribute to different challenges. It's time, Thompson said, straightening her diplomatic sash. Ready to help shape the future, Captain. Wilson nodded, taking one last look at the assembled ships outside. Vessels that had once fought each other now flew joint patrols, protecting the peace they had all helped create. You know what amazes me most? We spent a century letting them think we were primitive, and now they're coming to us for guidance, not because they have to, but because they want to. Because we proved that understanding is stronger than domination, Thompson replied. We showed them that diversity isn't a weakness to be controlled, but a strength to be embraced. As they walked toward the assembly chamber, Wilson reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. Humanity had emerged from their long deception not as conquerors, but as teachers. They had won not by destroying their enemies, but by understanding them so completely that they could help them become something better. The first session of the Interstellar Cooperative is now beginning, the AI announced as they took their places among the delegates. The chamber hummed with the energy of possibilities as species that had once been mortal enemies came together to forge a future none of them could have created alone. The war's supposed finale had indeed been just the beginning, not of human dominance, but of a new age where understanding and cooperation would take civilization further than conquest ever could.